Tonight is the 19th of September, and this is the 61st time we are speaking on the Majjhima Nikaya Suttas. Tonight we come to Sutta 146, Nandaka Sutta, advice from Nandaka. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. Then Mahapajapati to Gotama, together with 500 nuns, went to the Blessed One. After paying homage to the Blessed One, she stood at one side and said to him, "Venerable Sir, let the Blessed One advise the nuns. Let the Blessed One instruct the nuns. Let the Blessed One give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma." Now, on that occasion, the elder monks were taking turns in advising the nuns. But the Venerable Nandaka did not want to advise them when his turn came. Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. "Ananda, whose turn is it today to advise the nuns?" "Venerable Sir, it is the Venerable Nandaka's turn to advise the nuns. But he does not want to advise them, even though it is his turn." Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Nandaka. "Advise the nuns, Nandaka. Instruct the nuns, Nandaka. Give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma, Brahmana." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Nandaka replied. Stop here for a moment. The Buddha instructed that the nuns once in 2 weeks should be taught the Dhamma by senior monks. And generally, senior monks means those with 20 vasa, 20 years higher ordination or more. What later came to be called Mahathera. But during the Buddha's time, any monk who was ordained 10 years and above was called Thera or Thero. And they did not have the word Mahathera. Later, they coined the word Mahathera for monks with 20 years ordination and more. And then this Venerable Nandaka here is said that he did not want to teach the nuns. According to the commentary, the commentary says that in the past, Nandaka was a king, and the nuns in the past were his concubines. So he was afraid that those monks with psychic power would know and then would think that he is attached to them, wants to associate with them. But I don't think that's very reasonable, because if he over-associates with them, then they might think so. But he is just like any other senior monk, just taking his turn. However, there are some arahants who are not inclined to action, not inclined to do this or do that. They like to just meditate. So possibly he's one of those. You see, at the end of the sentence, the Buddha said, "Give the nuns a talk on the Dhamma, Brahmana." This Brahmana could mean Brahmin. Either this Venerable Nandaka was of the Brahmin caste, or the Buddha could mean Brahmana. The other meaning is religious man. So it could be either one. Then in the morning, the Venerable Nandaka dressed and, taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Savatthi for alms. When he had wandered for alms in Savatthi and had returned from his alms round, after his meal, he went with a companion to the Rajaka park. The nuns saw the Venerable Nandaka coming in the distance and prepared a seat and set out water for the feet. The Venerable Nandaka sat down on the seat made ready and washed his feet. The nuns paid homage to him and sat down at one side. When they were seated, the Venerable Nandaka told the nuns, "Sisters, this talk will be in the form of questions. When you understand, you should say, 'We understand.' When you do not understand, you should say, 'We do not understand.' When you are doubtful or perplexed, you should ask me, how is this, Venerable Sir? What is the meaning of this? And they said, Venerable Sir, we are satisfied and pleased with Master Nandaka for inviting us in this way. Stop here for a moment. So it looks from here that the nuns were staying in this nunnery in Rajaka Park. That's why this Venerable Nandaka went there. Then Venerable Nandaka comments his talk. He said, Sisters, what do you think? Is the I permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Is the ear permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Is the nose permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Is the tongue permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Is the body permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Is the mind permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this well as it actually is, with proper wisdom thus. These 6 internal bases are impermanent. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is, with proper wisdom. Sisters, what do you think? Are forms permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Sisters, what do you think? Are sounds permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Well, similarly, he asked concerning odors, flavors, tangibles, mind objects. And they say, no, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this well, as it actually is with proper wisdom thus. These 6 external bases are impermanent. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Sisters, what do you think? Is I consciousness permanent or impermanent? And they say impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Similarly, he asked concerning ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. Is mind consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? because, Venerable Sir, we have already seen this world as it actually is with proper wisdom. Thus, these 6 classes of consciousness are impermanent. Good sisters, so it is with the noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Nandaka is trying to make them see that the 6 internal sense bases are impermanent, suffering and not fit to be clung to as I and mine. And similarly, the 6 external bases, we remember, are the baits of Mara, trying to hook us with beautiful forms, nice sounds, nice odors, taste, touch, and thoughts. And then the third set is the 6 classes of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, etc. These 6 consciousness, the 6 sense bases, make up the whole world. The first 5, 6 senses, conjure up the external world. The 6th sense, the mind, conjures up the internal world. So everything in existence is in the 6 bases, 6 sense bases. Sisters, suppose an oil lamp is burning. Its oil is impermanent and subject to change. Its wick is impermanent and subject to change. Its flame is impermanent and subject to change. And its radiance is impermanent and subject to change. Now, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? While this oil lamp is burning, its oil, wick, and flame are impermanent and subject to change. But its radiance is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, while that oil lamp is burning, its oil, wick, and flame are impermanent and subject to change. So its radiance must be impermanent and subject to change. So too, sisters, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? These 6 internal bases are impermanent and subject to change. But the pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling that one experiences in dependence upon the 6 internal bases is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because each feeling arises in dependence upon its corresponding condition. And with the cessation of its corresponding condition, the feeling ceases. Good sisters. So it is with a noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. Stop here for a moment. So here, Venerable Nandaka starts to give some similes to show more clearly the Dhamma. So this oil lamp is burning, and the different components, the oil, the wick, the flame, the radiance, are all impermanent. So this radiance, which is the brightness, you cannot expect it to be permanent because it's the radiance depends on all these other factors. Depends on the oil, which is impermanent, depends on the wick, which is impermanent, depends on the flame, which is impermanent. So how can the radiance be permanent when the conditions for it, namely the oil, the wick, the flame, are impermanent? So since it depends on certain conditions which are impermanent, so you can say it's even more impermanent. So similarly, the feeling arises through contact at the 6 internal bases. When the eye contacts form, then a feeling arises. And when ear contacts sound, then another type of feeling arises. So this feeling arises due to contact at the 6 internal sense bases. But the 6 internal sense bases are impermanent. So feeling cannot be permanent. Why we talk about feeling? Because people tend to cling to feeling. When you have a pleasant feeling, you want to experience it again and again. And this craving is the cause for rebirth. This craving for good feeling is cause for the round of samsara. Sisters, suppose a great tree is standing possessed of hard wood. Its root is impermanent and subject to change. Its trunk is impermanent and subject to change. Its branches and foliage are impermanent and subject to change. And its shadow is impermanent and subject to change. Now would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? The root, trunk, branches and foliage of this great tree standing possessed of hard wood are impermanent and subject to change. But its shadow is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because, Venerable Sir, the root, trunk, branches and foliage of this great tree standing possessed of hard wood are impermanent and subject to change. So its shadow must be impermanent and subject to change. So too, sisters, would anyone be speaking rightly who spoke thus? These 6 external bases are impermanent and subject to change, but the pleasant, painful, or neither painful nor pleasant feeling that one experiences in dependence upon the 6 external bases is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change. No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because each feeling arises in dependence upon its corresponding condition, and with the cessation of its corresponding condition, the feeling ceases. Good sisters. So it is with the noble disciple who sees this as it actually is with proper wisdom. So here, Venerable Nandaka is trying to show that feeling also arises dependent on the 6 external bases. That means forms contacting the eye, sounds contacting the ear, odors contacting the nose, taste contacting the tongue, tangibles contacting the body, and thoughts contacting the mind. So these 6 external bases are impermanent, and so the feeling that arises dependent on these 6 external bases are impermanent, or even more impermanent. Sisters, suppose a skilled butcher or his apprentice were to kill a cow and carve it up with a sharp butcher's knife, without damaging the inner mass of flesh and without damaging the outer hide. He would cut, sever, and carve away the inner tendons, sinews, and ligaments with the sharp butcher's knife. Then, having cut, severed, and carved all this away, he would remove the outer hide and cover the cow again with that same hide. Would he be speaking rightly if he were to say, "This cow is joined to this hide just as it was before"? No, Venerable Sir. Why is that? Because if that skilled butcher or his apprentice were to kill a cow and cut, sever, and carve away all that away, even though he covers the cow again with that same hide and says, "This cow is joined to this hide just as it was before," that cow would still be disjoined from that hide. Sisters, I have given this simile in order to convey a meaning. This is the meaning. The inner mass of flesh is a term for the 6 internal bases. The outer hide is a term for the 6 external bases. The inner tendons, sinews, and ligaments is a term for delight and lust. The sharp butcher's knife is a term for noble wisdom. The noble wisdom that cuts, severs, and carves away the inner defilements, fetters, and bonds. Stop here for a moment. So here you can see this butcher, he cuts away the outer hide and then puts it back again, but it's no more joined to the inner flesh as before, because the connecting inner tendons, sinews, and ligaments have all been cut away. So these inner tendons, sinews, and ligaments are represented by the inner defilements, fetters, and bonds that cause the attachment of our inner bases to the external sense bases. So here he's saying that one who has severed, cut away the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases is no more attached to them like before. An ordinary person is attached to the 6 external bases, strongly attached because of the inner defilements, fetters and bonds. But the Arahant has cut away this attachment, these defilements, fetters and bonds, so that the external sense bases are no more attached to the internal sense bases like before. This is quite a striking simile. Sisters, there are these 7 enlightenment factors, through the development and cultivation of which a monk, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. What are the 7? Here, sisters, a monk develops the mindfulness enlightenment factor or recollection enlightenment factor, which is supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. He develops the investigation of Dhamma enlightenment factor, the energy enlightenment factor, the delight enlightenment factor, the tranquility enlightenment factor, the concentration enlightenment factor, the equanimity enlightenment factor, which are supported by seclusion, dispassion and cessation, and ripens in relinquishment. These are the 7 enlightenment factors, through the development and cultivation of which a monk, by realizing for himself with direct knowledge, here and now enters upon and abides in the deliverance by mind and deliverance by wisdom that are taintless with the destruction of the taints. When the Venerable Nandaka had advised the nuns thus, he dismissed them, saying, "Go, sisters, it is time." Then the nuns, having delighted and rejoiced in the Venerable Nandaka's words, rose from their seats, and after paying homage to the Venerable Nandaka, departed, keeping him on their right. They went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, stood at one side. The Blessed One told them, "Go, sisters, it is time." Then the nuns paid homage to the Blessed One and departed, keeping him on their right. Stop here for a moment. Venerable Nandaka at the end told them that they have to cultivate the 7 bojangas, the 7 enlightenment factors, which leads to liberation. Without the 7 enlightenment factors, one cannot become liberated. So when he finished his talk, he said, "Go, sisters, it is time." They paid respect to him. Then they went to pay respect to the Buddha. But you notice Buddha doesn't talk much with these nuns. He just says, "Go, sisters, it is time." So they pay homage to him again and they depart. We notice in the Suttas and the Vinaya, the Buddha has very little words to talk to anyone except in connection with the Dhamma. He does not waste time talking, "How are you? How's your health?" and all these things. He doesn't. And he generally only talks to the non-arahants. Those who have not attained arahanthood, generally he does not talk much to them. And these arahant nuns, they come to him even in the middle of the night. Those with psychic power, like Venerable Upalavana, the one with the greatest psychic power. Sometimes in the middle of the night, she flies in the air, stands in the air, wants to come and talk to the Buddha. Sometimes when he sees that the Buddha is occupied with devas or what, she'll wait. If there's no devas keeping the Buddha busy, then she'll come down and talk to the Buddha. Soon after they had left, the Blessed One addressed the monks. "Monks, just as on the Uposatha day of the 14th, people are not doubtful or perplexed as to whether the moon is incomplete or full. Since then the moon is clearly incomplete, so too those nuns are satisfied with Nandaka's teaching of the Dhamma, but their intention has not yet been fulfilled." Then the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Nandaka. "Well then, Nandaka, tomorrow too you should advise those nuns in exactly the same way." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Nandaka replied. Then the next morning, the Venerable Nandaka dressed Then, as before, after Pindapata and all that, he went to teach the nuns, and in exactly the same way. Then the nuns paid homage to him. After that, they went to pay homage to the Buddha. Then the nuns paid homage to the Blessed One and departed, keeping him on their right. Soon after they had left, the Blessed One addressed the monks. Monks, just as on the Uposatha day of the 15th, people are not doubtful or perplexed as to whether the moon is incomplete or full. Since then, the moon is clearly full. So too, those nuns are satisfied with Nandaka's teaching of the Dhamma, and their intention has been fulfilled. Monks, even the least advanced of those 500 nuns, is a stream enterer, no longer subject to perdition, bound for deliverance, headed for enlightenment. That is what the Blessed One said. The monks were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. It's the end of the sutta. So here you see Venerable Nandaka. First he talks about the 6 internal sense bases, that they are impermanent, suffering and not fit to be regarded as I and mine. And then the 6 external sense bases, then the consciousnesses that correspond to the 6 bases. And then after that he gives these similes which are very striking to make them see that the feeling that we cling to is dependent on other conditions which are impermanent. That being so, the feeling itself is even more impermanent. And then we have to cut the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases. Once we cut off the delight and lust for the 6 external sense bases, then we are no more attached to them as before, and become liberated from them. So the first time they heard it, they kind of half understood. So the Buddha said to repeat the teaching, and repeated the same teaching, and it sunk in. So all of them attain Aryahood, different levels depending on their samadhi. So this shows that listening to the Dhamma, especially the suttas, is very important. And it also shows that the more times you listen, the more it sinks in. Like these nuns, when they heard it the second time, then they attain various levels of Aryahood. So listening to the Dhamma or studying the suttas again and again is very important. Each time we listen to the sutta or read the Nikayas, the suttas, then we understand the implications more and more. Just listening to the Dhamma is vipassana. Vipassana means contemplation. When you listen, you immediately contemplate. And it's equivalent to samasati. Samasati, we are supposed to be mindful of or contemplate 4 objects of sati, the body, feelings, the mind, and Dhamma. And I always say out of these 4, the Dhamma is the most important because it leads to the various levels of Aryahood. When you understand the Dhamma, you will attain the wisdom that gives you the attainment of the various levels of Aryahood. Now we come to the next sutta, 147, Chula Rahulo Vada Sutta, the shorter discourse of advice to Rahula. This is also found in Samyutta Nikaya 35.121. Thus have I heard. On one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anatta Pindika's park. Then while the Blessed One was alone in meditation, a thought arose in his mind thus: the states that ripen in deliverance or liberation have ripened in Rahula. Suppose I were to lead him on further to the destruction of the taints. Then when it was morning, the Blessed One dressed, and taking his bowl and outer robe, went into Savatthi for alms. When he had walked for alms in Savatthi, and had returned from his alms round, after his meal he addressed the Venerable Rahula thus, "Take your sitting cloth with you, Rahula. Let us go to the blind man's grove to pass the day." "Yes, Venerable Sir," the Venerable Rahula replied, and taking his sitting cloth with him, he followed close behind the Blessed One. Stop here for a moment. As you all know, this Venerable Rahula is the son of the Buddha. And the Buddha thought it's time for him to attain destruction of the taints. Destruction of the taints or destruction of the asavas means liberation or attainment of arahanthood. We find from the suttas, generally the style of lifestyle of monks during the Buddha's time was once the sun comes up, once dawn comes, then they go and beg for their food. After they have come back from their alms round, they eat their food. After they eat, then they find a secluded place, a quiet place to pass the day in meditation. So here the Buddha asked Rahula to follow him to the blind man's grove. Now on that occasion, many thousands of deities followed the Blessed One, thinking, "Today the Blessed One will lead the Venerable Rahula further to the destruction of the taints." Stop here for a moment. These deities, these devas and devis, they like to listen to the Dhamma. So whenever there's a chance to listen to the Dhamma, they will follow to listen. Then the Blessed One went into the blind man's grove and sat down at the root of a certain tree on a seat made ready. And the Venerable Rahula paid homage to the Blessed One and sat down at one side. The Blessed One then said to the Venerable Rahula, "Rahula, what do you think? Is the I permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." "Rahula, what do you think? Are forms permanent or impermanent?" "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." Similarly, with eye consciousness, eye contact, and then any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise with eye contact as condition, permanent or impermanent? "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." So you see, this form of questioning is quite a standard form that the Buddha uses to make the disciple to see that all these things that we cling to, the I, and then the forms, and then the I consciousness that arises, the eye contact, the feeling, perception, volition, consciousness that arise from the eye contact. All these we cling to as I and mine, to see them as impermanent, suffering, and not fit to be regarded as I and mine. Similarly, the Buddha asked Rahula, "Rahula, what do you think? Is the ear permanent or impermanent?" And he says, "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." And then, are sounds permanent or impermanent? "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness?" "Suffering, Venerable Sir." "Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself." "No, Venerable Sir." Similarly, is ear consciousness permanent or impermanent? "Impermanent, Venerable Sir." Similarly, the same line of questioning. And then also, is ear contact permanent or impermanent? Is feeling, perception, volition, consciousness that arise with ear contact, permanent or impermanent. Then similarly for the nose, is nose permanent or impermanent? Is sound permanent or impermanent? Is nose consciousness permanent or impermanent? Is nose contact permanent or impermanent? Feelings, perceptions, volition and consciousness that arise from nose contact permanent or impermanent, etc. And similarly for tongue, in the same way, is tongue permanent or impermanent? Are taste permanent or impermanent? Is tongue consciousness permanent or impermanent? Is tongue contact permanent or impermanent? Any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise from tongue contact permanent or impermanent? Then is the body permanent or impermanent? And similarly, is touch permanent or impermanent? Is body consciousness permanent or impermanent? Is body contact permanent or impermanent? Any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise from body contact permanent or impermanent? Then lastly, is mind permanent or impermanent? And he says impermanent, remember, sir. Are mind objects permanent or impermanent? Is mind consciousness permanent or impermanent? Is mind contact permanent or impermanent? Any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise with mind contact as condition permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, venerable sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, venerable sir. Is what is impermanent suffering a subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. No, venerable sir. Stop here for a moment. So you see here, the Buddha takes the trouble to repeat again and again this same line of questioning. Each sense base, you find, each sense base, there are 5 things that he asks. For example, you take the eye. The eye is an internal sense organ. Then secondly, external sense organ forms. Thirdly, the consciousness that arises from that sense organ. Fourthly, the contact. Fifthly, any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise from contact. So each sense organ, there are 5 things. And each one of these 5 things, he asks 3 questions. Permanent or impermanent? Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this I am, this is myself. So for each sense base, you have 5 objects multiplied by 3 questions, so you have 15 questions. And because there are 6 bases, so you have 15 questions times 6 base, so you have 90 questions. So Venerable Rahula has to sit there and answer 90 questions just to make the point that all these are impermanent, and because they are impermanent, they are a source of suffering. And not fit to be regarded as I and mine, or this is mine, this I am, this is myself. Seeing thus, Rahula, a well-taught noble disciple becomes disenchanted with the eye, disenchanted with forms, disenchanted with eye consciousness, disenchanted with eye contact, and disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise with eye contact as condition. Similarly, he becomes disenchanted with the ear, disenchanted with sounds, disenchanted with ear consciousness, disenchanted with ear contact, disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise with ear contact as condition. He becomes disenchanted with the nose, disenchanted with odors, disenchanted with nose consciousness, disenchanted with nose contact, disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise from nose contact. He becomes disenchanted with the tongue, disenchanted with taste, disenchanted with tongue consciousness, disenchanted with tongue contact, disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arise from tongue contact. He becomes disenchanted with the body, disenchanted with tangibles or touch, disenchanted with body consciousness, disenchanted with body contact, disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arises from body contact. He becomes disenchanted with the mind, disenchanted with mind objects, disenchanted with mind consciousness, disenchanted with mind contact, disenchanted with any feeling, any perception, any volition, any consciousness that arises with mind contact as condition. Being disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge, it is liberated. He understands birth is destroyed, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There's no more coming to any state of being. Stop here for a moment. So here again, the Buddha, you can see the repetition, each sense base, 5 objects, and then after that, to make him see, to make him disenchanted with all these, then he says, being disenchanted, he becomes dispassionate. This disenchanted, another word, another translation you can see is wearied, tired of it. Wearied, and then becomes dispassionate. What's another word for dispassionate? Cool, in the sense no more passionate about these things, worldly things. And when he's cool, his mind is liberated. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Rahula was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. Now, while this discourse was being spoken, through not clinging, the Venerable Rahula's mind was liberated from the taints. And in those many thousands of deities, there arose the spotless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma. All that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. That's the end of the sutta. So you see, these devas and devis, they like to listen to the Dhamma because they have a clearer mind than us. And they can understand more easily. They have a lot of blessings. They are very happy beings, being in the heavenly realm. You need that happiness within for the mind to calm down. That's why the Buddha always stresses that in one of the first things to practice in the spiritual path, in the holy path, is to be careful of our three karmas, our bodily actions, our speech, and our mental thoughts. When we are very careful with this, that means we have to have a sense, this hiri ottappa, sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing. So if you have this sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing, you're always looking inward and observing your karmas. The Buddha said, before you do anything, you must consider what I'm going to do. Is it going to harm anyone? If it's going to harm anyone or annoy anyone, I should not do, or it harms myself. And then while you are doing also, you should observe. And after you have done that karma also, you should reconsider. Sometimes certain things, some people, they don't take the trouble to guard their karmas in this way. So certain things they do, they think it's not important, and they annoy other people, they hurt other people. So it harms them back. Their conscience is not so clear. So their mind cannot calm down. Sometimes you can see small things that, to some people it's small things, but it's not good for the doer. Just like you see some people, when our car park is empty, sometimes people who are more sensitive, they come, they dare not park in the car park. They just park the car under the tree or in the open. But those who are less sensitive, they see the car park is open without asking anybody, they go and park the car there. That shows not sensitive. So this happened a few days ago, as all of you know. So you can see that's why some people are very likable, some people are not likable. There's a reaction. To some people it's small thing, but I mean, if it doesn't harm us, it's a small thing. But the person who does the careless action, it harms him. So, here it says in the many thousands of deities, there arose a spotless, immaculate vision of the Dhamma. All that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. This is another way of saying they attain stream entry. So you can see quite clearly from here, stream entry is usually attained by listening to the Dhamma. They listen to the Dhamma and they attain stream entry. So this way of questioning is the I permanent or impermanent? Is what is impermanent, suffering or happiness, etc. This is quite a popular way the Buddha teaches the Dhamma. Tonight I'll stop at these two suttas because tomorrow there is a more detailed explanation of this which I find is very good. So the next sutta is very, very important. So I want to leave it for tomorrow. Probably tomorrow we can do two suttas. So here he only says because some these sense bases and sense objects, sense consciousness, contact, etc., feeling, etc., all impermanent. So they are source of suffering, and because they are source of suffering, you should not regard them as this is mine, this I am, this myself. But in the next sutta, it explains a bit more about this impermanent nature. Okay, anything to discuss? Yes, devas generally engage, are obsessed with sensual pleasure because life is so good there. However, many of them are spiritually mature, and because they are spiritually mature, their time is right. So when a Sammasambuddha appears in the world and they know, so because of their good karma, this spiritual maturity, they want to listen to the Dhamma. And the attainment of this stream entry, to me, generally, I think that's the most they can attain, generally, stream entry, because they are not quite inclined to meditate. They just want to enjoy heavenly pleasures. So listening to the Dhamma is the most they can do. Only those anagamins, when they are reborn in the Suddhavasa heaven, some of them may practice. But even then, they practice also, they don't practice like the Bodhisattva. They don't strive very hard. And they in the suttas it is mentioned that devas don't attain arahanthood. Arahants are only found in the human realm. So like the anagamins, after the Suddhavasa heaven, when they pass away, they just enter Nibbana without going through the arahant stage. So it needs this spiritual maturity for them to want to listen to the Dhamma, just like human beings. Human beings, many people have the opportunity to to meet the Dhamma, but many of us, after meeting the Dhamma, many humans, they don't make any further effort to investigate further or to renounce and to become a monk or nun. So only those who make the effort to investigate the Dhamma and practice according to the suttas, only those are the ones who are spiritually mature. They're ready to lead the round of rebirths. So I think it's the same, whether in the heavenly realm or in the human realm. You need that spiritual maturity before you are interested in the Dhamma.
And it seems to me like they come and go to earth so easily.
Come and go what? Depends on the level of heaven. It is stated in the suttas that when the world comes to an end, it's due to the contraction of the world system, and the stars come closer and closer together until they all collapse into one huge star. So the earth will burn, and then these humans who know that the world is coming to an end, they will meditate, and they are reborn in the second jhana heaven, and this fire will consume right up to the first jhana heaven. That means the Brahma heaven. This place where Brahma resides, the first jhana heaven. So the second jhana heaven is so far away that the fire cannot reach there. And it's also mentioned in the sutta that the Buddha in the flesh body, with the flesh body, can fly as far up to the Brahma heaven only. So the others are too far away. So the sensual desire realm, heavens, the 6 heavens in the sensual desire realm, they are not too far away. But generally they don't come to the human world unless they know there's somebody like an Arahant, some Buddha, then only they come. Those that are nearest to us are the devas under the 4 great heavenly kings, Chatu Maharajika, the lowest heaven. Those are nearest to us. Others are a bit further away. Yes, because in the Shuddhavasa heaven, all of them are anagamins. So that's why they are especially interested in the Dhamma. So among the other heavens, you can see there are less Aryans. So less people interested in the Dhamma, less devas and devis interested in the Dhamma.
Forgive my ignorance on this. From the Sutta 1125 on page 1124, it says that it develops the investigation of this mindfulness factor. The energy and mindfulness factor, can you elaborate on that one?
This one is making the effort to practice after understanding. You see, when these are all mentioned in the Samyutta Nikaya suttas. under the Bojjhanga chapter, the Buddha says, when you draw near a teacher, then you have to show respect and all these things. And then the teacher will teach the Dhamma. So when you listen to the Dhamma and you pay attention, that is the first factor, recollection of the Dhamma, the mindfulness factor, mindfulness of the Dhamma. Then after that you investigate the Dhamma. This is the second factor. And once you understand, you investigate and you understand the Dhamma, then you put forth energy to meditate. Put forth energy to practice the Dhamma and to meditate. Then that will bring you the fourth factor, which is the delight, enlightenment factor. This delight you only get in the first jhana. That shows you have attained the first jhana. And subsequently, you get this tranquility factor, which is, you can say, the second or the third jhana. Then the concentration, enlightenment factor. In the suttas, concentration generally refers to the fourth jhana. So once you have the fourth jhana, you have equanimity, enlightenment factor. So all these 7 factors. Okay, let's end here tonight.